of my rookie guitar mistakes series that I'm going with. I was working away on my foot switch for this amplifier earlier today, and I was reading some of the comments and things I see on some of the guitar forums. And one that appears all the time, I thought, I'll talk about that. It's nothing new, nothing unusual, but if 5 people get something out of this, great. And it's the usual story of people who have bought an amp or modeler and they're playing at home and they've got a sound they love. It's high gain, I'm talking high gain, and it's big and it's rich and it's thick and it's buttery to play and it's beautiful. And then they go and play a gig, or they go into a band rehearsal or a jam session, and they take their lovely sound and then it's gone, and they turn up and they're playing away and can't be heard. So they might go, I'll add a bit more gain. No, and it all gets, you get totally lost in the mix, because what sounds absolutely glorious at home just does not work in a band. Really doesn't. So this is a little rundown of how to change your sound to work in a band context or in a live situation, and also to start using that now. Don't wait. Don't wait till the day of the gig and then go, yeah, I know what I'm doing. I've got to do this, this and this, and I'll be heard. Because you're not going to be comfortable with it. You've got to be familiar with the sound. So I tend to use the same tone at home as I do when I'm playing live. And it doesn't always sound great at home, especially out of this. The Jet City at home, when I've not really done much to the EQ, sounds quite thin and weak. It's not great. And then as you turn it up, it just comes to life and it's glorious. But today I'm going to use the PV Ultra Plus. That's what I've been working with today. I've been, like I say, working with the foot switch. I'm waiting on a cable for it, so I'm kind of on pause. But this has got an active EQ and it's really powerful. So it's a great one for giving you an example of what sounds lovely in here. And I do hope the microphone picks it up, because if you wanted a real metal tone, this is doing it in spades just now. However, what I'm going to show you is this sound that sounds great here is not going to work live, and the sound that I dial in for live is going to sound such a stark contrast to this. So, beauty of this, active EQ lets me cut and boost. So that's the first thing. I'm going to use my Ibanez RG1070 PPZ, lovely guitar with tone zone in the bridge, and I'll stick really to the bridge for this. I've also got a delay, which is a 34-year-old Boss SE50. It's a half rack. I've got a video on that. And that's my go-to reverb and delay unit. But again, I've set this up how I would never set it up. I've set this up how I hear an awful lot of guys, girls just starting out, and they've been playing and they play well, but it's all at home, and it's this home tone thing that catches people out. So here is the home tone that's wrong. It's very tight, it's very easy, it's beautiful to play, it's so nice. However, it's very bass heavy. Now we have a friend in the band. It is a friend, it's called the bass player. And leave the low frequencies to them, because no matter what you do, you can add in all the bass in the world and you will not be heard, because the bass player is playing an instrument dedicated to it. They're playing cleaner usually, so you get this thump from them, and they're also using usually amplifiers with much more power. Low frequencies use more power. So use your wattage you've got and focus it in the frequencies that work. So this has got a resonance control, and I've got this set on loose just now to give it as much low end as I possibly can. The bass on this is only set at about 2 o'clock, around there. It's not full on. But what I'll do is I'll just put the resonance to medium, and that's sort of to cover most amps, because you might not have a resonance control. If you're using a Boss Katana, and I've got one up there, the best trick is to go into the Tone Studio and EQ, and you'll see a low cut filter, and cut everything under 85 Hz. Just get rid of it. Leave that space to the bass player. And it focuses the sound. It tightens it all up really nicely. So, I'm in medium. It's very late 80s kind of Metallica, Megadeth tone. And it is nice to play. However, you will not be heard. You really, really, really will not be heard. It'll just be this sort of wall of mush in the background. So, first thing to do, I would say, is just ease off a bit of the bass. And you lose that warmth, that kind of overtone softness. Focuses that. Then the mid-range is the all-important thing. Get that up. Now, if you've been used to playing with very little mid-range, as soon as you start playing with mid-range, it will sound quite abrasive and quite harsh. However, you listen to early Van Halen, you listen to Ritchie Blackmore, you listen to Angus Young, AC/DC. It's all very mid-range focused. Marshalls, old 70s Marshalls, tended to be very mid-range focused. They don't really have a lot of bass. So, mid-range up, and all of a sudden, you're going to hear this as being louder. I hope, again, the camera will pick this up as being louder. It's not louder. I am not touching. Today, I'm not going to touch the volume control at all. And all of a sudden, even where I'm sitting, that's like, oh, that's hitting me harder. So, EQ, I'm quite happy with that. The edge can stay up where it is. The treble side, you know, fairly high. That's okay. This is quite a dark sounding amp. So, the next big issue tends to be gain. Way too much gain. Way too much gain. So, if I play with this, you'll hear this, the noise floor just now, and I'll play something. Suddenly the amp's very quiet. I've turned the gain down to, we'll go to 10 o'clock. So I've taken it from maximum to 10 o'clock. So you think, well, it's going to be very, very weak. Now, amps do vary. This is a high gain amp. I'm in the Ultra channel. I can't access the Crunch channel till I make my foot switch. So wait for that one. So here we go. Much quieter. Now that's got attack attack now. You hear this punch coming through. Your pick attack is there. So now, when you're playing rhythm, that's going to lock in much nicer with the kick drum. And the whole band will sound bigger because everybody's getting this thump from the bass, from the drum, from you. And you're able to be nice and rhythmic. You don't tend to need a noise gate to the same degree either. It's very barky. Now, there's a start. That's good. It's not got quite as much gain as a lot of people would like. However, when you're playing live, you turn up the volume, you've got to back off some gain. It really, really is vital that you do this. Otherwise, you're just projecting a wall of mush. Now, the next big issue that I tend to hear is this. Lots of delay. And that is lovely if you're saying the neck pickup and you're playing some beautiful slow solos. But if you're playing rhythm and rock, this is again, you're adding layers upon layers upon layers and it gets mushy. So I tend to play, believe it or not, with no delay. I get rid of it completely. So delay off. And this is where I suggest that people always practice with no delay. Even if you want to add a little touch of delay, but have it quite low in the mix. But if you play with no delay, you initially feel very, very exposed. It's almost like you're like a banjo in a way. If you think of a banjo player, the moment they stop playing, it's gone. There's no sustain, there's nothing, it's just don't. So they have to keep going. However, with no delay on, yes, initially you feel very vulnerable. But when you go to a venue, usually they're quite reverby, they're quite echoey. So you tend to have to kill delay anyway. But the problem is, if you have all your delay running through your amplifier, and you have to kill it because the room's echoey and you've got reverb going and you've got delay going and it's all cascading into each other, it's like the noise in a gymnasium, like a big old games hall, very echoey and boomy. It's not nice, it's not controllable. So you turn up and you have to kill off all your reverb. Now, the audience will still hear the room much more than you may on stage. But you're then playing in a place you're not familiar. You're playing in a very uncomfortable, dry sound. Your guitar isn't behaving like you're experiencing, like you experience it at home. So, practice with no delays, no reverbs, totally dry. You can always add a little bit. It's easier to add it in than take it away. Because you're used to it dry. You know what you're going to do, you know what it sounds like, and you're happy. So, no delay on the same sound. Now, who needs a noise gate? Stops dead. Absolutely dead. Now, that might not be enough gain, but you can then go, well, I'll add a bit more gain if I want, but I probably wouldn't do it really from the amp. I'll go maybe up a touch. Go to 11 o'clock with the gain. Fine, still stops dead. But if I want more gain, I brought back my old Boss SD1. Now this is where using things like the SD1 or a Tube Screamer or the Wampler Triumph or a Klon, something that is this mid-focus, shelves off some bass, that's where they really come into their own, because they're giving you a frequency range that's like a voice, and the human ear is trained biologically to pick up voice. So if you're in that range, you don't actually have to be as loud to be heard. So if you listen to the gain increase just with the drive is barely on, levels on full, the standard way of using a Boss SD1 or a Tube Screamer in this context. There's the noise. But for gain now, that's where you might need a noise gate. But I am sitting that far off a speaker. Hard to avoid. But the beauty of that is you now have less gain in the amp. You might not even need to have a crunch channel, because you can use your guitar volume pot or pickup selection. For example, here's with SD1 on, lots of gain. That was off, but if I just roll off the volume, but even better if I go to one of the other pickups to get more of a single coil sound. Back down to 10 o'clock. That's very little gain now. It's just adding some sustain, but it means you can use your guitar as your instrument to control so much. You're not having to run back to the pedal board. So you've got much more range, much more control, much more in the way of dynamics from your amplifier. And this works with modelers too. Doesn't have to be a tube amp. Doesn't even, transistor amp will do as well. Not to the same effect. Modelers are getting so damn close though now, it's hard to tell. But just that nice dry sound. You feel exposed, but get used to it. Because when you go and play in a band context, you will be heard. You're not going to be lost in amongst everybody else that have occupying their frequency range. The bass is down here with the kick drum. You're up here. There's an overlap, but you've got to deal with the singer. Okay, that's sometimes problematic enough. But there's your range, and then you've got your hi-hats and cymbals away up top. So you've all got your own layer of this big sandwich, and it works wonders. The other thing is, you always hear some effects like a wah-wah or a phaser or a flanger. These modulation effects where the frequencies seem to just come in and out. Wah-wah is the most obvious because it does occupy that vocal range. That's why the crybaby wah-wahs. Your ears pick up that sound. No louder, but that moving tone shift, that frequency shift, your ears pick that up because it's like a voice. hopefully I've got a temperamental phaser, so phaser does the same, and that's the Van Halen trick. It's this moving wave that makes that jump out. Again, it's not louder, it's just this moving tone shift that you hear. But again, the louder you get, the less effect you want. Just ease it back, bury it in. I tend to run my phaser into the front of the amp, so it's not going to be so noticeable. It's a much more subtle effect. And then you're fine. Now, in the room, how I work something like this is I tend to use the resonance control and have it set on lower. So, yeah, if you're at home, try and only really vary one control. Or if you've got presets, great. But with an amp, I'll flick that into the loose mode and I'm quite happy for playing at home. It sounds big even at low volumes. It's like the loudness button on your hi-fi, if you remember those. But now, even if you play much heavier music. Now, early 80s type thrash, Metallica's and the likes, is a Marshall tone. It's actually not that high again either. So you would get away with that for that kind of early Marshall, kind of Metallica. And again, no noise gate, no need, just punch it. No overdrives on there either, that was just the amp. So add a bit of overdrive. Yeah, that's all you need for that. When you get into that later 80s thrash sound, yes, they've got less mids. But live, be very wary of that. Your mid-range is your friend. So get used to using it. Now, this is only to somebody that's played at home. If you played live, you've probably found out the hard way that, oh, my sound doesn't work. And you fixed it by now. So hopefully this is of use to some of you. And I will have something for you soon, because once my cable arrives I can test my pedal, then I can play the crunch channel of this and let you hear that. But that's to come. So if you've enjoyed this, or even if you've not enjoyed this, like and subscribe would be great. I've cracked the 300. I'm now aiming for 1 million. I'll get there, maybe. I've got some more news coming soon, hopefully, that should be very interesting to a lot of you. It's made me very happy anyway. So thank you very much, and I'll have more for you soon. Bye bye.